This is Laura DeFranco, holistic physical therapist and owner of Brave Healer Productions. I'm excited to bring you my new holistic healing series where you're going to learn from the experts what it means to live fiercely alive, mind, body, and soul. I invite you now to take a breath, relax, and feel the vibe of the words my guest has to share with you today. Welcome, everybody. I have a very special episode to bring to you today. I am interviewing the authors of a new book called Find Your Voice, Save Your Life. It's a project led by Diana Leader of cravemorelife.com. And you guys, I cannot wait to introduce you to these amazing women I have here for you today. Jacqueline Kane is a medical intuitive, supports women in discovering the crucial hidden links between their physical pain and their ability to live a full life. With over 30 years in healthcare, Jacqueline has merged her innate wisdom with a multitude of healing modalities to create a results-oriented method of healing. As owner and operator of Winged Hearts with Karen Deschamps, teaching and healing is Karen's passion. As a yoga teacher, ageless grace educator, and Reiki and therapeutic touch practitioner, Karen brings body, mind, spirit, awareness, and connection to her participants. Boy, easy for me to say tonight, huh? And then watches in awe as they mindfully and gracefully, as they age mindfully and gracefully. Winged Hearts with Karen Deschamps is where you're going to find her on Facebook and Instagram. And by the way, you guys, all the authors are hooked up in those show notes down below for later. So no worries. I have Robin Olson with me today. She's a single mom to a 19-year-old daughter. Holding an MBA and CPA, she branched into mindfulness coaching and Reiki energy healing 3 years ago. Her new passion includes writing poetry and memoir, helping women find healing in connection with themselves and others. And lastly, I have Susan Purvis with me. She's an outdoor aficionado, author, and world traveler, having worked on all 7 continents. She's had a career that spans the globe as gold exploration geologist, a wilderness medicine specialist, and search and rescue canine handler. Go Find, My Journey to Find the Lost is her first book. Did I get that title right of your book, Miss Susan?
Go Find, My Journey to Find the Lost and Myself.
Okay, I knew there was words missing there. I'm like, find the lost what? Isn't that a TV show? Okay, so you guys, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to Jacqueline to start this little party off today. And I want to know, Jacqueline, tell us about the chapter that you wrote, but in terms of like, what did it mean for you to find your voice?
Well, first, when I was writing my chapter, I didn't realize how much emotion I was still holding. Because first I had to figure out what was I going to write about. And the stories that came to me were the times when I felt that I was kind of like slapped down as a child in my family. So even just thinking about those memories and putting it all together really got me into the emotion of it. And I hadn't realized how much I was still holding on to. And I think I have a business, and, in order to have a business, you have to have a voice. So it took me a lot of time and years to feel comfortable using my voice and to help other women to use their voice. It's powerful to go through that journey. And there's many women who aren't using their voice. And it's time for many women to heal whatever they need to heal, and then use their voice to become who they are. So
they often say that having a business is like the ultimate self-development journey, right? In all of the different ways. But I loved how you tied it to voice tonight, because I hadn't thought about it like that before, but oh man, are you right? And
I'd even say having children would cause to have a voice, right? That's probably my first awareness. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, for sure. So you're also the second person so far in the different interviews that I've had who was saying to me that you didn't really realize until you got into this chapter, right? What it was going to bring up for you. It's like you uncovered something that you didn't realize was there. And you personally have done this kind of work for a while. Talk to me a little more about that.
I wasn't expecting it. I had also talked to somebody else who wrote her chapter, and she really felt a lot of healing. I could even tell the difference afterwards. But for me, I was on the floor crying like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was still holding on to all of this. So writing, I know, Laura, you help all of us to become better writers, but writing is so healing. And I wasn't expecting that. I was not expecting to have so much emotion still stored. And I've done tons of healing, tons. It's just how much more we still have to do.
Yes. And that's why they call it the journey, right? So it's, you kind of do it until you die, and it's going to be layers, and you do get to a place where you feel lighter. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
But how cool is it to excavate the crap you didn't know was there and just be like, wow, okay, I'm honestly only in a room full of healer types where you have those kinds of conversations. Bring it on. Give me the next layer to this journey. Let's do this. Yeah. So Kieran, talk to me a little bit about your chapter. What did it mean for you to find your voice?
Well, basically, using my voice saved my daughter's life. And I'm one of those people who hates confrontation, will do everything to try and work around it or avoid it or compromise. And I found that when my daughter was diagnosed with leukemia and was very, very close to death. I knew it. Her nurses did not know it. And they wouldn't help me get a neurologist to her. And so I had to take a little tantrum and almost stamp my feet. I didn't, but I wanted to. And I just had to, declare that I would not sit idly by while they let my daughter die that night. And as it turned out, finally, she did call the neurologist to come and see my daughter. And yes, her brain was swelling and swelling. And if he hadn't taken care of her that night, she would have died. Her swollen brain would have snapped her brain stem. And so, like, my message to people is, if you truly believe something and feel you have to get out, you've just got to say it. Trust yourself and say it loudly, strongly, clearly, and you'll be amazed at the results. And perhaps you too can save a life, yours.
What a story, powerful story in the book. And I want to say thank you to all of you for saying yes to this project and for stepping up in such amazing, authentic, and heart-centered ways in your storytelling and offering us all such vulnerable pieces of your lives to help us understand, right? And to help us be brave, because that's part of what I think happens is, in your story, you give me permission to tell mine in some way. And even if it's just to write mine in my journal or grab my BFF and just say, hey, I have a story to tell you that I haven't said to anyone yet in my life or whatever, right? It doesn't always have to be published in a book, but you all went that further step and you decided to be the ones to share in that way. And I just wanted to say thank you for that, because I know it takes some courage. Mm-hmm. So, Robin, tell us a little bit about what finding your voice meant to you and a little bit about your chapter.
Okay. Finding my voice meant to me, I was always able to find my voice when my back was against the wall. When I was in dire circumstances and I had to make a decision to save my own sanity or to just get out of a bad situation. Several years ago, I decided I didn't want to live that way anymore because it was fearful living. I wanted to be able to find my voice to make my own decisions when I wanted to change and when I wanted to do it, right? And that involved looking over my entire life, really. And I realized I had been living a silent movie. I mean, I could see everything, all the things going on, but at a very young age, I lost my voice. And my story is about the last 10 days of my mom's life, and my connection with myself, my intuition, and then how I connected with her. You know, when we're connected to our mothers even before we're born, it's that first connection we have before life and after life, and it really influences all the rest of the connections in our life, especially when we parent, right? My younger sister was disabled, and my mission as a child became you be seen and not heard. And so that's how my silent movie began. And so finding my voice to change when I wanted to change happened through inner work, meditation, breathing techniques was one of the biggest saviors of my life. And that's in my story too. I had to find a way to connect with my mom, to forgive all of the things that happened when I was growing up, and then be her advocate at the same time. Even though we had a strange relationship for 50 years of my life, I now had to be her advocate. And so it became necessary for me to do it for myself, to be able to change. But then when I found myself having to take care of a mom who never really mothered me, that meditation really came through to help me forgive her through gratitude.
You're saying be seen and not heard. Anyone else? Yeah, I mean, like, there are these themes, right? Especially growing up, and that's one of them. Like, anyone also recovering good girl, you know, that type of thing. So you're making me think of that when you said that. Yeah, really powerful. I know that several of the stories in the book were about parents, and of course that does it makes sense. There's some root causes of voice issues, I think, that happen with certain people in your life and certain stages of life. But how cool it is that we can sit here and have this aware conversation about it. And then again, just repeating myself, that you guys were brave enough to share it in a way that might help someone else, right? So we're going to talk a little bit in a minute about how we help other people in this way, in this storytelling way. So Susan, how was it for you? What did it mean to you to find your voice?
Since I was in the third grade, I knew I always wanted to write a book. And as I got older, especially right into college, I lost my confidence. I said, I can't afford to. I don't know how to write. I'm no good. I could never make a living. So I put off writing for a very long time. I had to go make money. Finally, I was at a point in my life, in my career, where I had a story worth telling. So I sat down over 10 years ago to write my story. And I didn't know anything about storytelling or writing. I barely got through, high school English. So I remember calling a professional writer of mine and said, who'd written 4 books. I said, so I'm ready to write my book now. What do I need to do? And he says, well, Sue, one of the first things you have to do is find your voice. And I'm like, find my voice? Like, I had never heard that before. And so someone who's never written, that's a process. And I thought I could whip out a book in about 3 months. And, 10 years later, so I write about, one of the first things that I could write in my story, which was really, I wrote a memoir about my search and rescue career in the high country of Colorado, was, the only place I could go was the climax of my story, where I had to answer this question: how come it's easier for me to jump out of the side of a helicopter with my avalanche dog at 13,000 feet to find a dead guy than it is to talk to my husband about our 18-year relationship together? Well, so that's where I started writing that chapter. Like, well, you know, who am I and how come I can tell a stranger on an airplane all about my woes and troubles with my husband, but I can't tell my husband? So that was the first thing I ever wrote. It didn't make it into my book, but I found a home for it here because, you know, the question I pose at the end is, how is it that we can go, like I can go through decades and have my voice, and then I can go through a decade and lose my voice, or it can happen in a day or a minute. Like, I'll just tell you this, the other day I had to do a job and I was going to fight for, you know, a high hourly wage. And I got slammed and I couldn't stand up for myself. I lost my voice and I even practiced in the mirror. I will not accept anything less than this. And I did. So I'm posing the question, how is it that some days we have our superwoman cape on, and then some days we're just like curled up in a little ball and we can't defend ourselves. And that's the discussion I want to have. I hope it brings up, and we get a lot of feedback from women and men about how we go through life, finding and losing our voice, even on the hourly level.
You know, it is a moment to moment practice, and it's all about awareness. And what beautiful awareness you're talking about right now, because in a day, it could happen several times. And if you're paying attention, of course, that's the key. So you get into your body in the moment, get into your mind and body in the moment, and then you get the choice of how you respond in those different moments, right? In those different ways. I love that we got that chapter into this book and it finally has a home. By the way, I love the scene, and you're a beautiful writer. And I love the way that you use some of that dialogue, because it makes us feel like we're a fly on the wall in this secret place that we shouldn't be listening to. It was great, right? And that's some of what great writing does. It's like you read and you just want to keep turning the page because you feel like you're being gifted this secrets of these authors, which I love. But yeah, spurring the conversations, right? And so that's an important one to you. So I want to stay with you for a minute, Susan, for this next question. So we talk a lot about this, finding our voice, healing our voice, expressing our voice, but why is it so important? This answer is going to be different for all of you. So for you, Susan, why finding our voice? Why this piece of the journey? What did it mean for you?
Yeah, the thing that came to me when you just asked me is it's my constitution. You know, by inherently I'm a leader rather than a follower. And so, you know, and you get penalized when you find your voice too. When you speak your voice, you know, there's trouble around the corner because someone's not going to like what you have to say. So it's really great to surround yourself with a tribe, but really it's, you know, I got it from my mom. My mom was loud. She was my mama bear. She taught me to have a strong voice. And so, you know, it's just my constitution. And you know, my goal is to help other people find their voice.
I love that. You immediately had me thinking about my mom and then my grandma. And I was just thinking to myself, okay, were either of them outspoken at all? And I would have to say probably not. They were a little bit more suppressed, stuffing the voice, that type of thing. Robin, for you, why is this important? So also think about our viewers, you guys, like if we were going to be sharing with them why we think it's important to be on the Find Your Voice journey here. Why was it important for you, Robin?
Because I have a teenage daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to change to set a good example for her. I mean, she would just follow in my lead and be fearful, but I knew I wanted to be a different role model for her and to find my voice, and her to see that and witness that can only help her. And I made that decision about 4 years ago. And she's now a freshman at the university, and I can see it in things that she's doing. She is an amazing young woman. And so I really did it to help her to be a better, and for me to be a better parent.
I love this so much. I have an 18-year-old daughter, and one of the vows that I made was to never squash her voice. I made that to myself, just being a mother. I have a son and a daughter, and I didn't want to squash either of their voices, right? But for just because I am a woman and have experienced what I've experienced with her, that feeling has been so much more intense. And I've watched her grow up and be able to speak her mind. And I don't know if, I know that you all will get it, but if you have other people in your world and they begin to judge that behavior as disrespectful, talking back, like I could go on and on about the list that other people want to call that beautiful daughter standing up for herself. Right. And so that was like one of the things, like I just never wanted her to feel like speaking her voice was wrong in any particular way. You know, she feels how she feels, she's allowed to say. Did any of you want to say something about that in particular, about the children? Go for it, you guys. What's on your mind?
I don't have a daughter. I do have 2 teenage boys, but I think there's a big push right now for women. And I've been watching The Handmaid's Tale lately, and it's like, oh my gosh, like women, I think it's really time for women to get clear in who they are and to be authentically themselves and to speak up and be heard, because we are losing a voice in some states and it's scary. And I think there's a lot of all you moms out there who have daughters are doing an amazing job. I think there's a lot of strong women who are being raised these days, and they're amazing. But I think we need to heal even more women, the moms, the grandmothers who are still not speaking up and feel that they can't speak up. So I think that's what's driving me right now is the Me Too movement and all of this, that we need to, there's more people that need to heal their voices and get comfortable speaking up.
So continue there with why then that is so important. I mean, it seems like a duh to me. Yes, it's important that more of us do this, but what are we after here? And so the word freedom comes to me, but what else?
Yeah, so I help women, I help my clients clear away their ancestral energy. And I believe that we can't be authentically us if we're carrying our ancestors' energy or anybody else's energy, but we don't know we're doing it. People don't know they're doing it. They're trying so hard to be authentically themselves, but they're carrying all this baggage. It's painful for empaths to see that and to feel it. And so many of our children are empathic and they're feeling the pain of that. That's why opioid addiction is on the rise. Suicide is on the rise. It's because these empaths as children are feeling the pain of the people who are walking this earth and are in touch with it.
That's one thing I love about hanging around a bunch of amazing healer people, right? So we can get into some pretty awesome conversations about the possibilities we have for deeper layers of healing. And this is one of them. I love talking to Jacqueline about her ancestral energy clearing. And your writing, Jacqueline, about this topic is powerful because it does that. It opens up our mind to something we may not have even thought about as a reason for the pain, right? I love that. Karen, for you, why is this so important? Unmute yourself, girl.
I forgot that I had done that because I was coughing. Jacqueline, you're bang on with my background. I'm actually a German-born woman, and my father was a German soldier. And he was conscripted into the army when the Gestapo found out that even at age 17, he was part of the resistance to Hitler. So as punishment, he was put directly to the front line. And, you know, here, this young man, still too young to shave, is faced with, all of that. But my mother at the time was 14, and my grandfather was already dead. So she was being raised by her mother, and then she had a sister just a year older. And their whole lives were like taking bodies out of the burning buildings and houses and putting them onto the sidewalks for collection, and running to bomb shelters in the middle of the night. And a lot of my family and their friends were killed with the bombs dropping all over the neighborhood. Anyway, long story short, the epigenetic DNA and fear from them as children, and that was World War II. They were raised by parents who had suffered in World War I, the Depression, been through World War II. Mm-hmm. So they didn't feel safe. And, you know, in my story, I'm saying, I'm sure my parents both suffered with undiagnosed PTSD, which meant, you know, our childhood was tumultuous at times, but I never felt safe, partly because I had heard the stories, but partly because when I was in an inner city school in Toronto, it was the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we started each morning having to go under our desks, sitting on our bottoms, knees tucked up close to our chest, our arms protecting our necks. So when they dropped an atomic bomb, we'd be safe. And I didn't feel safe my whole life. And now I'm seeing my daughters, and I'm old enough. I've had lots of different experiences, but my daughters are in their 40s. And I could see some of that fear still in them, that, intergenerational trauma. And so I felt I had to write our story so they could see themselves and see, similar to what Robin is saying. Let's make this stop right now. We don't have to be living in fear. Instead, we can be living in love and making good choices and valuing every moment. And, everything else will take care of itself.
Thank you, Karen. You guys, I know that for me, an entry point into finding my voice was writing. And because that felt safe to me, so I could begin to spill out everything I needed to spill out the secrets and the thoughts and the opinions and the dreams and, all the bad and all the good and everything in between. And I've been journaling since I was a teenager. And later on, it became something that I did out loud and for other people to read. But in the beginning, I needed a safe, way safer entry point for myself, right? So I wanted you all to think about if you were helping one of our viewers, our listeners today with the idea of, maybe they're struggling with this big time, whatever age they are, whatever stage they are, they're still really struggling. Each of you may have had an entry point into this finding your voice and healing. So wanted to start with you, Robin. What would you offer to somebody who's struggling in terms of that, of a way in to start the journey?
I studied I studied mindfulness coaching. And so when I have worked with clients, we get in touch with our bodies And when we think about what we're trying to achieve, I'm thinking of a particular client now. When you have to speak up, you find out where it resonates in your body, and you breathe into that, and you practice. I mean, it was just something that I did with my clients. I would practice with them and whatever they were wanting to work on in terms of their voice, if it was a presentation or things like that. I've worked with many clients on that. So mindfulness practices, the breathing really helps. And journaling is also writing everything down the way you want it to go. Positive affirmations also help. Write down what you're afraid of, and then you write down the opposite of that, and you focus on the positivity of what you're trying to achieve.
The breath work is so key. There are so many different kinds of modalities, but something that I'm resonating with and with what you're saying is that for me, the lack of voice, and I mentioned this earlier today, it has a posture, it's shriveled, it's closed down, it's small, and it's this wrapping around the solar plexus. It feels bad, it feels tight, and it's hard to breathe from there. And so sometimes, we think about finding our voice as this big, give me the microphone thing, when honestly, some days it's just about breathing better and about opening up your body right into another kind of posture. So you're just making me think about that. Karen, I'm going to slide to you with this same question. If you're telling somebody about this topic and you want to kind of guide them into a starting place, offer somebody who's struggling, what would you say to them?
Going just affirmations, I feel are really important and helpful and beneficial. I like to use mantras, which, are similar to affirmations, but to me, a mantra is almost a prayer. And if you just keep repeating the mantra to yourself over and over and over again, for example, and yoga is not religious, but it really is spiritual. So even if you just say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm safe, and get you over whatever it is that's bothering you, just saying it over and over. And there's where the breath comes in too. You're breathing, you're feeding your brain, your reptilian brain has a chance to come back to where it belongs so that you can use the intellectual part of your brain. I think what I would like to say, though, is a difficult part for me was when I had to separate from my husband of 41 years. And we had been together since we were 15 and 17. So I had no idea who I was. And I had to somehow forgive myself for not using my voice, and then use my voice to back away. And it was very, very painful. And what I did was a bit of a prayer that I learned from Louise Hay. And she said, if I could just read just a little paragraph, Louise Hay of the Hay House publishers and so on, said, every day, look in the mirror and say to yourself, I love you. Say it many times until you believe it. Now, as you look at yourself, think of something nice you would like to do for yourself or give to yourself today. Have you got it? Now do that for someone who hurt you. And I just thought, what are you freaking killing me? Why would I do that? However, I trusted the process and I came up with a little prayer, a mantra, affirmations, and and I'm not kidding, clenched jaws, grinding teeth, seething, I would say, All the joy I wish for myself, I wish for you. All the health I wish for myself, I wish for you. All the prosperity I wish for myself, I wish for you. And all the love I wish for myself, I wish for you. And I said that every day for months, and my stomach was sick, and I had a terrible, taste in my mouth, and I was all sweaty when I said it. But after I said it, I don't know, hundreds of times, it's like getting it onto paper. If you can say it and get it out, it just became easier and easier and easier. And then I could say it without crying. And I read once, if you can tell your story without crying, you're starting to heal. And that's what I did. And now I have a really nice relationship with my ex, who is, of course, involved with our children and our grandchildren. But that was really a turning point for me. And I hope that someone else could use that.
I love that, Karen. Thank you. And thank you for just sharing that vulnerable piece with us. You're awesome. I want to ask you the same thing, Jacqueline. So just thinking about somebody who's listening who might be struggling with this process, what would be something you would offer to them, maybe as an entry point here?
Yeah, a little along the lines of what Karen said. I would really have them just feel your feet, get down in your body and start feeling and get grounded, because so many times we go up in our heads and we try to solve things from our headspace, and it just doesn't work that way. So definitely take a few deep breaths and get down into your body and really feel what you're feeling and why you're feeling that way. And then step into compassion. Can you have compassion for yourself and even write a letter to yourself, forgiving yourself for not speaking up, for those times when you allowed your inner critic and your saboteur to take over and run the show and you showed up as meek? Can you forgive yourself for all those times? And just have compassion, knowing that you did the best you could. It's a journey to stand fully in our power and use our voice in a powerful way and not in a manipulative way. And it takes practice.
It for sure does. We're talking about a really ninja level of awareness here. And that is a practice. It's a practice until it becomes a positive habit. And you can train yourself like that, like anything else that you want to train in. Susan, what is that advice from you? I'm thinking of you as a writer, as somebody who has moved into the world with, hey, no, you're going to, I'm going to do this out loud for real here. Like, you're going to really hear my voice, but you might have another way of helping somebody into this as an entry point.
I do. I have two things, and it's this: have no regrets and leave nothing unsaid. Why do I say that? Well, I ended up marrying the love of my life, and he died 90 days after we got married, which is a story I haven't written yet. And so we think we have all this time to take care of all this business, and nothing's guaranteed. And I truly believe that you have to get your words out, leave nothing unsaid. If you were going to check out tomorrow, what is all your unfinished business? And writing it down, or starting a podcast, sharing it with a loved one, writing a letter to a family member is a great start. I mean, and why don't we do that? Because it's fearful, and what I hear circulating through this whole conversation is a lot of fear, and what is fear? It's an emotion that we try to suppress and ignore, but we have to take it out of the basement and pay attention to it. Just like we pay attention to joy and happiness and achievement. Fear and anxiety lives down there, and we've got to take it out of the basement and give it some sunlight. And it's amazing what will happen to people.
I love this so much. Nothing left unsaid. Sounds like either a book title or a podcast show that we need to start. Nothing left unsaid, right? And it came up in another conversation about all the good things that we leave unsaid because it's scary. Like, I love you. And just like the expression, all the good, positive expression that we're holding in because why? Because we're afraid of rejection. We're afraid of, right? And you can fill in the blank there. I'm not sure what, but hey, life is short. And I love how you're talking about that. And you actually have experienced something that catapulted you into it, right? You've experienced something that made you want to talk about that to other people. Don't live every day with things left, because you just never know. Anyone else want to comment about that? What's on your mind about that particular subject, you guys?
It is true that life is short. I think we have all this time. And then, people are gone tomorrow, and there's so much stuff hasn't been said, you haven't done. Look at all the people who work and then retire, and then they're done, and they didn't get to enjoy all the hard work that they put in. I think it is important to enjoy every single minute. And I love that. Leave nothing left unsaid. That might be my new phrase for 2021. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. Anyone else? Last words of encouragement? Not to put you guys on the spot or anything. So Jacqueline, where can people find you and come into your world after today?
The easiest place is probably Facebook, Stop the Pain with Jacqueline Kane. And then, of course, my website, jacquelinemkane.com.
All right, awesome. And remember, you guys, I've got you hooked up with everybody's links and sites and everything down in the show notes. Please scroll down and find those. How about you, Robin? Where can people come find you?
They can find me either on LinkedIn, Robin Olson, or at my website, robinrolson.com.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Susan?
I'm launching a new website, but right now you can go on to my old site as well. It's susanpurvis.com, and I'm also a writing coach.
Awesome. And Karen, how about you?
All right, I'm on Facebook, Winged Hearts with Karen Deschamps, and Instagram, Winged Hearts with Karen Deschamps.
Wonderful. Thank you. Ladies, you are amazing. And I'm so honored to have had you here. Thank you for sharing yourselves. Thank you for what you're doing in the world. You all just, I think, live and breathe the authentic, heart-centered healer thing. And you all are magical in the way that you're sharing your stories in this book. Viewers, this book is so amazing. It's so powerful. It's coming up, if you're listening to this show and it's before February 2nd, then guess what? You guys can join us on my Facebook page, Brave Badass Healers on Facebook, 10 a.m. Eastern on the 2nd of February, 2021. We're having a little live stream launch party. So you heard it today. You can come join us. We're going to have some fun giveaways. Watch us live stream on the page. We're going to have all of the authors of the book there to share a little bit about themselves. And we'll talk about the mission in general. We're just going to have a really good time. So if you're listening after the 2nd of February, well, then the book is available, and that is also down in those show notes. So you can slide on down and pick yourself up a copy. And I know you're going to be pretty amazed at the way that these women share their stories and how they're going to help you at whatever point you are on your journey. So ladies, thank you so much for being here and for sharing everything you shared today. And lastly, everybody, I want to leave you with a big question. It's my favorite way to end the shows. what if there's something you haven't learned yet about finding and healing your voice that could change everything? I think you're going to find some of those somethings in this awesome book. So time to be brave, everybody. See you next time. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Love what you heard today. Don't forget to drop down and hit that subscribe button, you guys, and then join me over at bravehealer.com for just a little bit more healing badassery. Have a great one.